Well, the fabric work on the wing is all done. The last thing that I did was to put those seaplane grommets in there, the seaplane drains in there. I went over those with the iron, got them smoothed out, and then I started to go over the rest of those tapes and stuff with the iron, and then I quit. I figured I'd already done it enough. All I was going to do is screw something up if I kept going. So anyway, the fabric work on the wing is all done. The next thing to do on it is start the finish work on it, which involves spraying it with polybrush and then poly spray, and then eventually with the finish color. So I've been working on that for the last few days outside. I haven't been doing anything in here in the basement for the last few days, but I've been working outside on some things here. So over the winter I've been working on our septic system, and that's where our septic tank is going down there. And then I've got a spot down below here that I've been prepping for the drain field. We dug that all out down to mineral soil because the soil that's on there doesn't drain. And then I've built it up with some material we hauled out of a friend of ours' place, and that stuff's not permeable, so that was basically just to make a good bed. And then I put some drain rock underneath and isolated it with some fabric so that the groundwater would drain underneath this thing. And then we had 2 10-yard loads of sand hauled in here that we bought from a construction company. Put one load down there on top of the drain rock, top of the fabric there, and then one load around the septic tank. And then I've been hauling sand in from a sand pit out the road for the last few days. Well, I think we hauled about 11 or 12 loads of sand in here with my little dump trailer. So I've got that built up and leveled out. That stuff drains pretty good. There's the chambers down there for the septic drain field, so I've got to get those put in. But most important thing is working on this airplane. Well, this is where our bathhouse was. Had a hot tub in there, shower, sauna, bath, shower, and stuff like that. And of course that caught on fire and burnt down last winter. Well, I dug out a couple weeks ago where the water line was and put a standoff there, a hydrant there for water, so we've got water out here. And then a couple days ago I dug a trench, and I had electricity out here to this, and of course the electric line burned off. I spliced in a new line onto that and dug a trench across this and over here to this post on my wood drying shed, and then I put a box on that, a breaker box on that, and a couple outlets on there so we can have electricity out here to use for this paint project. This area over here was a big hole. It had been a big washout from centuries of a creek running down here and all washed out. Several years ago we had a friend of mine haul material in from his pit and filled that in, put a culvert in there. Last fall and through the winter we hauled material out of his pit in there and brought that up and leveled it up. While we were hauling sand from the sand pit for the septic system, I got 3 loads of sand, a real soft sand with no rocks in it or anything, and put in there and put 2 or 3 inches of sand on there so we'd have a good working base. And now we've got this blow-up house here that is a paint booth. It's just like a kid's blow-up house. So we're getting it set up right now, and I just got it laid out. I've got some tarps. These are billboard tarps I got several years ago. Nice thick heavy vinyl tarps, and I put a couple of those down to insulate any rocks or anything like that from the bottom of this paint booth. And we just got the paint booth out and plugged in the fan on it, and I gotta get it blown up. It's just a temporary thing right now. This is not going to be permanent yet, but I just wanted to see how it was going to go. They advertise it as not being weatherproof, so I don't know what I'm going to do, because we've had 2 days of nice weather now. It's actually almost 80 degrees out here today, but it's supposed to turn off and start raining again for the foreseeable future, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do, but we'll get this thing set up and try it out and see what I need to do to get it usable. Well, we got that thing inflated now. Judy is getting some sandbags out to help hold it down. I sent sandbags in with it. We can fill up with sand and then tie the corners and stuff down with it. It wasn't inflating quite the way they advertised when we started on this, but once we got to pulling on it and getting it out, we found that there was a couple of zippers opened up. There's zippers in 2 of the chambers there to let the air out of it when you get done using it, and those things were open, so it wasn't inflating the way it should have. Once we got those zippers closed up, then it inflated pretty good. So that's a pretty big space in there. That one's supposed to be 33 feet long and 16 feet wide. I don't think it's quite that, because I measured that out yesterday, and I just barely had 33 feet from the edge of that pad up here to the front where my U-Haul box is sitting, and this fits inside that footprint pretty good. In fact, we've got the fan back there sitting behind the building on the pad, so that's going to work okay, I think. Got lots of tie down points on here. We'll have to get some anchors and drive some anchors into the ground here and put some ropes on there to anchor it down. One of the windows is open and it's too tall for me to reach, but everything's really tight because it's been all in the box here for, well, who knows how long, but I've had that since, well, for 6 months now. I've had it in the box in the basement. So anyway, it's going to take a little bit to get all the wrinkles and stuff out of it, and that's kind of what I wanted. Probably going to have to go to town and get plastic, some visqueen, put over the top of that and tie down so that it doesn't leak when it starts raining. You can see the chambers over there go up, and there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chambers. There's 3 in the middle, so there's 4 spaces there that sag down that are going to fill up with water. There was a company that made one you filled up like an inflatable boat, and you didn't need to leave the fan going all the time on it, and it was weatherproof, but they were really expensive and they didn't have anything big enough for what I wanted, and of course they wouldn't ship to Alaska, so this is what I've got. This would be better if it was inside of a building. I think that's what they're intended for, but I don't have a building big enough to put that up in, and I needed enough space to be able to get around those wings and stuff in there, so I needed a pretty good sized one. And that's got a separate compartment in the back 2 chambers back there. There's a divider between them, so you've got a clean room back there, a room back there for putting paint supplies and stuff like that, and then it's got a big work area here in the front. Got windows that velcro up that'll close up, and then here on the sides, those are filters, so there's another fan that goes on that blows air and pressurizes that building on the inside, and air vents out through these filters on the side, so you have positive pressure in there. So anyhow, I guess we better get busy and get this thing tied down and figure out how the best way to use it. I might have to build a framework inside of it. Well, I'm definitely going to have to build a framework inside of it, because when that power goes out and that fan goes off, that whole building collapses, and I'm probably going to have to build some kind of a cover for those fans so that they don't get wet. So anyway, that's my bouncy house, my blow-up house. And well, we've got the paint booth, adult bouncy house, all set up. Oh, it looks pretty good. Went down to the store and got a bunch of these little, they're phony stamped steel fence posts. They're just for garden fences and stuff. They're not the real cast iron fence posts like your farmer uses, but drove those down into the ground to use for anchors, and they do make good tent anchors. That's about all they're good for. And there's anchor points on those posts, those inflatable posts, top and bottom. In the bottom they sent sandbags or bags to fill up with sand to use for anchors on them. They don't really work on the outside. They're probably more for going on the inside in the edges and stuff. I don't know. They work okay, and they'd probably be just fine in a place where you didn't get any weather, any wind, or very much wind. And this thing is not weatherproof. You can see that in the stitchery and the sewing and stuff like that. There's no sealant on any of the seams or anything, and that's just a a lightweight fabric that those are sewed out of, so I know that it's going to leak. I was afraid the water would puddle up on top, but anyway, we went to town and got a length of visqueen, a length of sheet plastic to put up on top of it to keep it from leaking up there, hopefully. And that stuff, I was going to say it's just cheap because it tore already, but it wasn't cheap. But anyway, it tore already. And they didn't have any in rolls to fit here, so we had to get one off of a big roll unrolled. And this stuff is not the clear stuff, it's kind of opaque. But anyway, we've got that on there and tied down, hopefully keep the rain off. It was pretty blustery here, and you can see by the time we got that up that it already started tearing. We wound up putting some more anchor points on it. Hopefully we got it on there so it'll stay. My wife come up with a good idea for weatherproofing these blowers, is we just got these little totes. These are totes that we got from Costco to put stuff in to ship home. Anyway, she got 2 of those and tipped them upside down on the blowers and put a couple rocks on them to hold them down. That'll work for a while. We'll see how that goes. So there's 2 fans. One on this side is a bigger fan, and that's the one that inflates the bouncy house here, and then the other one pushes air inside and it pressurizes the inside of it, so there's positive pressure inside of that thing, and there's enough pressure in there that when it blows up and these outside edges and stuff come clean off the ground. Well, we've got it anchored down pretty good now. Like I said, it was pretty blustery today, so this thing was a handful. Well, we got a door here. I'm not going to try to open it. Well, this is the back side, and there's a man door, zippered man door right there to go in and out of. And then you got a clean room or a work room, workspace, whatever there, and partitioned. The person could put a bench in there and stuff to mix paint and whatnot in. And it's a pretty good sized little room. There's nothing wrong with that one there at all. And it's got this plastic sewn into it, so it's got good light. And there's also a couple little panels up on the roof, and then there's another man door there to go into the main room, and there's 2 filters there, so you got positive pressure in there, and that's pretty good pressure in there, so it goes through those filters and then pressurizes this main room here. And this room is pretty good size. Like I said, this is a 33 by 16 foot paint booth. And we couldn't get the thing to inflate very well when we first started, but there's zippers right there on that center post to allow it to deflate, and those were both open. And we couldn't find them because everything was all folded up and everything on top of them. Once we got those closed up, and then the thing inflated pretty good. Well, we've got that visqueen tied down with some ganyan twine, some heavy string, nylon string that they use for tying up nets and stuff, seine nets. And I've got some rubber balls in there, just pushed through it and tied with a slip knot around them, tied down to those tie down rings. There's tie down rings on, well, there's not one on that post there. There is one on the end post. There's not one on that post. But then these other main posts all have tie down rings on them, both top and bottom. Well, this is a filter here. And there's the filter material. And you can take the filter off and clean it. And you take this cover off here when you're painting, and then this filter filters out the overspray and the fumes and stuff coming out. So it's got a definite positive pressure inside there. You can see how that blows out right there on that front. So it's pressurized pretty good in there. Well, the front here is a zippered door. I think you can unzip the whole thing and take it off the way it looks like, but anyway, it's a big zippered door. And then you got a zippered man door in the middle of it. Well, I've got this sand and stuff everywhere here, but I've got tarp down in front, and this thing is all sitting on the tarp all the way around, so that can clean my shoes off and whatnot, or give me a place to take my shoes off to go in and out of there. Well, this is what it's like inside. You got two big windows on both sides, and then there's small portholes up on the top, and those are the same clear plastic as the ones on the side. They've kind of covered up a little bit now because we've got that visqueen on top of there. But with this thing pressurized, positive pressure in here, that top domes up pretty good. So I'm hoping with that visqueen on top there to keep it from saturating the fabric and it blow it up like that, that if it rains, the rain will be able to run off of it and not puddle up on there. Hoping that anyway. We'll see how that works. So this one big window here on one side is an emergency exit. That's all velcroed in there, and there's red handles there. And you can just rip that thing down. That was opened up when we blew the thing up, and because it had been sitting for a long time and was kind of cool, it took a little bit to get that closed back up. But once it set out here in the sun and it warmed up in here, then everything was a lot more flexible. So then I was able to get that closed up. There are, I better look the other way against the sun, there are little nylon hoops all over the place in here, on the sides and on the top, on each one of these posts in here, for hanging lights and things like that. Now it's bright enough in here in the daylight that it probably don't need any lights. If this was put into a building, something, then you'd probably want lights and stuff in it. But out here in the daylight, now it's overcast now, it's not bright sunlight, but it's still plenty light enough in here to work, to paint. Now I can hear the air going out through the zippers and stuff on the door here, but this thing is pressurized pretty good. Like I said, hopefully it'll blow up enough and keep that top up there blown up that the rain comes off of it. Now we had a good day today, but it was pretty blustery, so it was kind of a challenge tying this thing down and getting that plastic up on top and stuff. But it was hot today. It was almost 80 degrees today, and it warmed up in here. It got pretty warm in here just from being closed up and being pressurized from that blower out there. This thing just took off by itself like a hot air balloon. Well, I've still got some work to do in here now. The thing is all set up, but I've got to do something to make a framework to hang that wing from, and it probably should make some kind of a framework in here so that if the power goes out or that fan quits, that if this thing collapses, it doesn't collapse down on the finished paint and stuff on the wing. But I think this is going to be a pretty nice workspace in here. If those fans were off someplace else where you didn't have to listen to them, it would be a whole lot better, but not bad. We'll see how it holds up in the weather. Again, tomorrow morning is not supposed to be too bad, but then it's supposed to start raining for at least the next week. And that'll be the proof then, is what happens when it starts raining.